They simply went there to have a bikers gathering, and before they could even understand what hit them, everything was over. May 17, 2015. In Waco, Texas, at a diner named Twin Peaks Restaurant, 200 people, including the members of biker gangs like Bandidos, Cossacks, and their allies, gathered for a meeting to discuss the political rights of motorcycle law enforcement. During the meeting, a shootout erupted that left 9 bikers killed and 18 other people injured. Today, I am going to tell you why this shootout was one of the most controversial cases in the history of Texas, which, according to Waco Tribune-Herald, led to a 4-year prosecutorial fiasco that resulted in 0 convictions. The violence caused by the biker gangs has never been new in Texas. Although, in 2014, the Texas Department of Public Safety marked Bandidos Motorcycle Club as a Tier 2 threat, for they used to conduct their illegal activities as covertly as possible, avoiding the high-profile criminal activities like drive-by shooting like other bikers gang. Common people had mixed feelings about them.
Television drama Sons of Anarchy popularizing motorcycle culture. Investigators like Jay Dobbins, who infiltrated the Hells Angels, says the outlaw gangs often battle over drugs and...
On the day of the shootout, there was a regularly scheduled meeting of the Texas Confederation of Clubs and Independents. The police were made aware of the meeting, and the restaurant agreed to host the meeting. 18 Waco police officers and 4 state troopers were there, monitoring the event from the outside. According to Steve Cook, executive director of the Midwest Motorcycle Gangs Investigators Association, there always has been a conflict between Bandidos and Cossacks. This time, the element of dispute was about the right of the bikers wearing a certain patch on their jacket, including a geographic bottom rocker of Texas, to mark the territory. Bandidos, being the dominant ones, claimed to approve all those jacket bottom rocker patches. This led to some disagreement and conflict, which turned into a violent shootout.
Guy on that, I looked out, I was watching, and he deliberately steered into one of our prospects and hit him. He wasn't going real fast, but he deliberately ran into him with a motorcycle, enough to, knock him down.
The biker mentioned by Willson was Clifford Pierce, gave the police a statement that said he didn't get his feet run over, but may not have gotten out of the way fast enough. However, it didn't matter. The Cossacks believed that the Bandidos ran into one of their guys, and the gunfight was on. It's unclear that who fired the first shot, since during all the police interviews the 2 gang members just pointed fingers at each other or claimed that they didn't see anything. Clifford Pierce said that he was shot and hit the ground. A bullet hit straight to his spine and left him paralyzed.
It was pretty horrific. There were guys getting hit and falling, and I realized that I needed to get away from where I was, and I looked to the guy to my left, a good friend of mine, and I told him, I said, we got to get off the sidewalk or we're going to die here,
According to Police Sergeant Patrick Swain, Bandidos were not invited at the meeting, yet they showed up because they wanted to have a show of force and make a statement that Waco wasn't a Cossacks town.
All right, good morning. Those of you that don't know me, I'm Sergeant Patrick Swanton, the PIO for the City of Waco Police Department. With me today is Trooper D.L. Willson from the Texas Department of Public Safety. He is the PIO for this area and has been an instrumental part of providing information to me and working with us.
After the shootout, the whole restaurant was a mess. Although the meeting was supposed to happen at the outside bar area, the shootout took place all over the restaurant. That included the bar area, inside the restaurant, and even the washroom. Since dozens of bikers ran inside the restaurant to hide, there was a bloodbath everywhere. Soon, police SWAT team went inside to round up the crowd, and they arrested some people on spot. Not only that, they found weapons like knives, brass knuckles, and more than 150 firearms scattered around the restaurant. Some gang members even tried to flush the guns down the toilet but failed. Police arrested a total of 170 bikers and pressed murder charges on them. The number was so large that the local jail couldn't accommodate them all, and police had booked a separate convocation center to keep them. The confusion started afterwards, when their profession came into light. Some of them were customer service executives, some FedEx employees. Now the question arises, did all of them play an active part in the shootout? Or some of them were just victims to the circumstances? FBI undercover agent Charles Falco started investigating the motorcycle gangs in disguise because he felt that biker gangs were still out to assassinate him.
The struggle between the Cossacks and the Bandidos has been escalating lately, so they both decided to show up at this event and show their strength. Whenever that happens, when you have two enemy biker gangs that show up in the same event, there's a high probability of this happening. At conducting war, and biker gangs are known for very violent wars with each other.
This incident started influencing the biker gangs all across the world in a wrong and disturbing manner. In New York, a biker gang terrorizes a family in SUV. Everyone was thinking that they could get away with anything just because they are in a bike club. Yes, that's how Bandidos' bad influence was taking over Thea slowly.
It's a nasty, dirty, bloody, vomit-covered existence. And there's nothing sexy about it when you're in it. The Bandidos are an international organized crime syndicate. And these events that we saw yesterday in Texas, they happen all the time with these guys.
ABC News Channel termed the shootout as a really gruesome scene straight out of the crime drama Sons of Anarchy. This enraged the entire town of Waco as there were civilians and other customers present in the diner at the time of the shootout. To save themselves, they had to crawl inside the freezers.
We were panicked. A lot of people started ducking.
Nobody was doing anything, and they want to start shooting people. They don't leave people alone. I don't know what the problem is.
The corporate office of Twin Peaks decided to shut down their Waco branch after this incident, since they were warned by the locals and the police about not hosting the annual meet at their restaurant, but they did it anyway. Bandidos had a saying back then, "Cut one, we all bleed." During this shootout, it looked like they stood by it. But why was the show of power so important for Bandidos? Edward Winterhalter, a former member of Bandidos who was there in the gang for 6 years and has written 10 books of biker culture, says turf is everything to the biker gangs.
The big deal goes back to when we were on the playground in first grade, and you had two bullies on the playground, and the playground wasn't big enough for both of them. Last year in 2014, the Cossacks put on the Texas bottom rocker. The Bandidos told them to take it off. And the Cossacks told the Bandidos that that wasn't going to happen.
I'd say half of them are full-time criminals where they're selling dope, selling drugs, involved in prostitution, or illegal gambling, any other types of crimes you can think of. For them, they're outlaws, and that's what they are.
You would think that after such a gruesome incident, there will be some notable punishment towards the people involved, since even though not all of the 170 bikers were not the shooters, a majority of them were. But you will be surprised to know that within 8 months, they will be bailed out of jail with an ongoing court case. Because although it was a public shooting, surprisingly no witnesses can actually describe what exactly happened and how it escalated so far. After a lot of investigation, the former district attorney Abel Reyna dropped charges against all except 24 people who were seen holding firearms and actively shooting in the surveillance footage. Among these 24 cases, only one was prosecuted in court that ended in a mistrial. A judge put the rest of the cases on hold during the time of re-election. More than 100 bikers have filed civil rights lawsuits alleging McLennan County, the city and others violated the plaintiffs' civil rights by arresting them without probable cause after the shooting. Mark Snodgrass, president of the Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, said, "It's a travesty that so many people were rounded up and then investigated, instead of vice versa. A lot of these people's lives were put on hold for 4 years. After 4 years, in 2019, McLennan County District Attorney Barry Johnson said any further effort to prosecute the case would be a waste of time, effort, and resources, because he doesn't believe that with the lack of evidence prosecution can ever win the case. He said he will reopen the case if there is any new evidence. Meanwhile, a lot of lawsuits have been filed, with people calling press conferences declaring how they were victimized. Hence, this seemed like a wise decision. It's been 9 years to this deadly shootout. 93 hours later, the former Twin Peaks building remains shuttered after 2 other restaurants failed in their efforts to make the location work. And 9 years later, about 90 bikers who filed civil rights lawsuits are still waiting to see if their false arrest claims can move forward in court. At least 4 of the bikers have died while their cases have been pending. Will the rest of the bikers too meet the same fate? Guess we'll never know.